Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 17. Alright, we're in Silver 2, and already things are being filtered out, and we're getting these boxes again. So, yeah, pretty much everything I hate is in this box. There are some faces we don't see too often. We got Karika there, we got Mariandel. Iron Blood Commander's not someone we usually see too much nowadays. But the rest of it is pretty standard for rushing things down or just sitting in the back and charging up until you murder me. Yeah, that's pretty much all to say. There are only one tank, two primary healers. There's some passive healing that Mariandel can do, and technically Iron Blood Commander can do some healing with her formation shenanigans, but usually in this sort of box you probably bring her for the additional mobility. Everything else here is a lot of characters that can close the distance very quickly and become AoE, and then of course we got Andriel because he's in every box nowadays. They went ahead and opened with banning my Rosen Seal, so I go ahead and ban their Andriel. I used to ban Isolde first, but Andriel is just a bigger problem for me, so I'm getting rid of him first. It kind of sucks because if my opponent does pick Isolde, I haven't had too much experience with dealing with the opposing Isolde, and I don't actually have a lot of characters that can gap close very quickly. A lot of it just revolves around me hoping I can get a shot with Silvaria or something. But I grab Liana, get that out of the way, and this is one of the few times my opponent bans both Silvaria and Isolde. So my two primary first DPS picks have been completely taken out. Surprisingly, my opponent actually grabbed a tank first. So that actually helped me out quite a bit, because I already took care of Andriel, and the other two threats were going to be Oboro and Isolde, because both of them could just sit back and power up and then do their nonsense. And I haven't really tested out if I can snipe a Boro reliably with Silvaria. The last time I did it, it failed, but that was with a range bow. So go ahead and get rid of both Isolde, get rid of a Boro. This was a little... I am concerned about Jayce. I saw enough Chinese matches to see that Jayce is just a plague. He's awful. He has a very strong gap closer with his teleport, and then he can also recall himself back to original positions, and he can guard bypass as long as there's a certain type of debuff on the enemy. He also has an AOE that's pretty devastating. I go ahead and grab Namiya. I wanted to grab someone that can tag hopefully like tag the front row of enemies with her AOE or put out a bunch of terrain. She's also I think she's better DPS-wise than my Tatalia. Speaking of, my Tatalia and Connie have been both banned at this point. And they grabbed Jayce. So this is literally my first time going up against a Jayce. Alright, I went and got rid of the Awakened one, get rid of Polyol. So at this point I'm kind of getting rid of any additional mobility. So the only additional mobility they really have right now is Iron Blood Commander, and technically SP Bernard can give +1 mobility with his faction buff, I believe. But that's about it. Of course, there's the option of Act Again as well with Liana. So I go ahead and grab the Awakened one. This was either to see if my opponent would actually grab a healer, because grabbing Rosen Seal would be a pretty decent counter against the Awakened one at this point. But if my opponent doesn't, I could be in a pretty good shape. So I lost Freya and I lost Hilda. I'm not exactly sure why those two particular tanks were picked. Neither one of them can buff Namiya. So they grabbed Iron Blood Commander. So at this point I was like, I'm not going to let them have immunity, so I banned both their healers. So now I have the ability to put out Spellbound with the Awakened one. The Awakened one is definitely a character I've been considering replacing, and so this is one of the few times I actually get to use her. A lot of my opponents tend to be a little bit more tank pushy, so they usually will grab like an actual tank, stay close together, and have like a healer or something, usually a Rosen Seal. So that kind of shuts down a lot of the Awakened one's options. At this point I go ahead and grab Christiane. Everyone here so far is magic damage, Of course, the remaining enemies, with the exception of Mariandel, is physical, but that's okay. They go ahead and get rid of my Eshian, get rid of my Sissy White. They grab their Mariandel, so this is their only quote-unquote healer. I'll go ahead and get rid of Sword of Light and Shadow, get rid of Karika, and I go ahead and grab Florentia. I don't have a faction buff for her, but she does have one act again in the barrel, so we'll see if that'll be enough. And then this leaves them with the 2 SP classes. One of them is Empire faction. Actually, no, correction, both of them are Empire faction. So it's either SP Leon or SP Bernhardt, and they grab SP Bernhardt, which has less mobility, so still a lot, but not as much. Alright, so it's been a while since we used the Awaken one, so we got Awaken one here, Poison Bat Mages, and then I have just AoEs. I actually didn't even think about switching her spells. This is the setup I have for when doing like AI arena, so I can just, you know, AoE the opposing force and get it over with. Leon here, standard kit, act again, heal 3C with Windbloom Chanters. Christiane, I brought Vanguards. This is mostly to try to endure anything coming, you know, possibly my way. Also, if I had taken Angels, I assumed Jayce was going to have like some sort of archers, which I was correct. We got Florentia here, 3C, her AoE heal, and then her passive. So every time someone dies, she will get a battle strategy at the very least. And she can also accumulate battle strategies through her 3C. Namiya here, standard kit, AoE, Coral Volley, and aim. So one mistake. Oh, so the past few videos I've been saying that Namiya has the AoE bow, and it's true. I did swap it, but they long since made it so any swaps I do on my actual characters don't apply to the Apex box unless I go specifically to the Apex box. So right now she actually has the range bow, which I completely forgot, so I need to actually fix that after these videos. Yeah, Christiane, standard kits, Namiya, the Fairy Spirit Prophets, and then of course we got Bernhardt with all of his exclusives and his 3C faction buff. Brought Steelman Werewolves, nothing surprising there, he has a lot of defense. Got Lightbringer here, brought Strengthen, so he does have ways to buff other people. And then of course, Discipline and then 3C. We got Jayce here. Alright, so Jayce, this is not a fully decked out Jayce. I'm thinking 5 stars? Usually you don't see a character's top 6 stars have something, a number like this where it's like a 16 or something like that. It's usually like a 20, you know, 25, 15, something along those lines. Alright, after taking action, he can put a Arcane Trace where he ends his turn. This possesses the command effect increasing attack and intelligence to everyone nearby and reducing magic defense from everyone nearby. That lasts for 2 turns. After attacking, he can remove 1 plot of his Arcane Trace to teleport back to that location. So the only weakness for Jayce is he does need 1 round to cook usually, because he usually wants to set up a teleport way back here and then go ham. Speaking of going ham, he's got Radiant Judgment here. For every 1 plot of his terrain, he increases his damage. Does 1.6 times damage. If equipped with ranged soldiers, he'll also attack. They'll also attack with them. Super effective against everything except non-mages. And then before battle, if the enemy is afflicted with a magic defense reduction effect, they will ignore guard. This is what makes him annoying. And if the enemy survives the attack, they'll be unable to move on their next turn, so stun. Arcane Flash, cast on self, defensive terrain, or an allied Arcane Trace. He'll teleport to that block, so he literally can teleport just about anywhere. This is, yeah, he can teleport all the way to here if he really wanted to, or even down here, because that's just defensive terrain. So, pretty crazy. Haven't seen something like this since, was it Mia? The one that could teleport to any, like, forest tile? In any case, teleport, then move 2 blocks and attack. And of course, buffs don't cycle. And then his AoE here, 3.6 times AoE, applies special terrain effect where it's essentially a vortex. Lasts for only 1 turn, but anyone within that terrain gets a magic defense debuff, which means he can guard bypass. And anyone trying to move out of the command range, each block consumes an additional mobility, and then at the end of the turn, it teleports the person, if they're in range, back towards the center. So what usually the game plan is, he moves up, teleports, AoEs, teleports back, and then sets up again, and then teleports forward, and then guard bypasses, then teleports back. That's usually what he does. The only good news is, right now, the only people that can give him an attack buff is Lightbringer and Ironblood Commander. Besides that, he also brought Wild Expedition troops. These guys get, when in grassland and water, it actually classifies it as defensive terrain, which is kind of neat. Besides that, it's just an attack buff. Mariandels has Fighting Mucks. She has her 3C Aura Purification, which does like AoE and healing at the same time, and then she has her heal. And then we got Ironblood Commander, of course, with Sandseed Mercenaries and Mass Attack, 3C, and her move and act again. Alright, sorry that was a bit long. Let's get going. So right off the bat, I'm just going to be super aggressive. So here's the situation. I'm not going to be able to get fully out of range, but since Mariandel can't really reliably remove debuffs right out of the gate, I mean, the only thing she can really do is try to do Aura Purification. The idea is I can hit the front row here and do some damage, and then inflict them with the Treat Everything as Water Terrain debuff, and kind of go off of that. That will slow them down quite a bit. Alright, no attack buff besides the aim doing extra damage. Spread out a bunch of terrain. Yeah. So, Jayce just teleported. He's currently debuffed with taking additional fixed damage, and he treats everything as water. Bernhard had no way of closing the distance as far as using his move again, act again nonsense. Lightbringer I wasn't really that concerned about. The only thing that could have happened instead is Ironblood Commander could have moved here, and then moved again, and then go here and do 3C, and that would have definitely gotten killed, probably. And then, of course, that would leave them exposed to possibly getting hit by the Awakened one as a counter. But instead, we got Jayce here. Jayce is really super wounded right now, but he also does a ton of damage with his Radiant Judgment. I do have a Magic Defense buff active, which is nice. Alright, no last rites. So Radiant Judgment. Alright, so a couple things saved me here. One is two things saved me here. One is I had a magic defense buff. He does magic damage, his troops do physical. The other thing is he didn't crit, and that pretty much ensured that I was good to go. That being said, I still believe I could still trade. Yeah, I would have still been able to trade and kill him. In which case I would have been able to put out Spellbound on all 4 characters. But then the fight would get a lot longer, because essentially it'll just be a tank push rush, and my opponents kind of do more. I think my opponents have a lot more single target damage than I do. But this worked out. So now I can go ahead and swap with my now stunned Namiya, get her out of danger. I was considering my options about maybe moving up and doing AoE as a follow-up. That was something I was considering, but I decided to just play it safe and take out Jayce. At this point, I was pretty comfortable that I was going to be able to actually fight now, because they don't have a guard bypass anymore. Yeah, so I could have done 3C instead, which would have not only killed, but also done more Spellbound, but honestly I was not that concerned about it. So, going to go ahead and heal, cycle some debuffs, or not debuffs, cooldowns. Alright, Mass Attack is now up. Mariandel does have her, I think it's her exclusive that's giving her the extra stacks. So she's going to get all the way to there at least. Alright, going to go ahead and get faction buff going. So, yeah, Lightbringer moved up, which I was a little surprised by. I was kind of tempted to see if I can. I was tempted to either use Awaken One or Namiya here. Lightbringer's at 50% life, so even without an attack buff, which she already has an attack buff, she can probably get rid of the Sulfur at the very least and then move back. So there's my act again, and here comes this. So Spark of the Soul. Alright, so this is important. To do that, obviously I did some damage, does a debuff where I take damage based off, yeah, I take fixed damage if an active skill is used, which usually is all the time. But she stopped in my terrain, took some fixed damage, and now she's in water. So technically she's in guard range, but I have Coral Volley available. So I go ahead and move up. Of course, I have the extra movement for going through my own terrain. Go ahead and stun her and just kill her. And at this point, I fall back, and yeah, I was about to just throw out some terrain. I was going to probably just fill in the holes that I left behind, or my opponent left behind, and then after that, I mean, at this point they have no really primary healers, so I could have just gradually AoE'd them to the ground. So yeah, a lot of fun. My first fight against Jayce actually worked well. I was super lucky. The odds were not in my favor, so definitely luck did play. I think, like I said, the Awaken one would still be able to get in range to do 3C to kill Jayce, regardless, using a swap and all that nonsense. But after that, it's going to get very interesting, because it'll be Mariondel, Bernhardt, and Ironblood Commander, all three of them, against essentially just the Awaken one. I think it was still going to be doable. It was just going to be rough. We'll put it that way. I was going to have to rely on a lot of act agains and a combination of her Awaken one's AoEs, and then of course Florentia's AoEs, which does have potential. So I think she can do mobility down as well with her AoE, but I don't remember. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I am the Depressed Dior. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 17. I'll see you guys in a bit.